In today's lesson from the Microlearning Institute, we look at a process proposed by Kotter to help lead strategic change. This process has as step number 1 the concept of establishing a sense of urgency. Step number 2 suggests that we should then create a guiding coalition to support the change. Step number 3 involves developing a vision and a strategy for the change. Step number 4 involves communicating this change vision to the organisation. Step number 5 involves empowering a broad-based action across the organisation. Step number 6 suggests we should generate short-term wins to support the change momentum. Step number 7 suggests we should consolidate the gains and produce more change. Step number 8 involves anchoring new approaches in the culture of the organisation. Let's look at these individually. Firstly, what do we mean by establishing a sense of urgency? Here, Kotter suggests that if we want to instigate change, we have to create a crisis. We have to highlight any major weaknesses of the organisation, or maybe even allow errors to compound so that we can paint our own organisation in a not so favourable light. We should set goals and targets unrealistically high, and we should distribute performance data highlighting the deficiencies of the organisation. All of these actions are aimed at establishing a sense of the urgent need for change. Additionally, we should promote interactions with unsatisfied customers who are unhappy with our product, suppliers who are unhappy with our processes, or shareholders who are unhappy with the returns they're achieving from the organisation. Next, we should create a guiding coalition. And this guiding coalition should have what's called positional power, i.e. we need to have enough key players on board so that those left out cannot easily block progress. They should have expertise, so the various points of view need to be adequately represented so that informed, intelligent decisions can be made to help us deliver the change. This guiding coalition of people should be credible, so the group should have enough people with good reputations in the organisation that will be taken seriously by other employees. And the guiding coalition should have leadership skills and should include enough proven leaders to be able to drive the change process. Next, we need to develop a vision and a strategy for the change. And this vision needs to be imaginable, so it should convey a picture of what the future will look like. It should be desirable, it should appeal to the long-term interests of all of the key stakeholders like employees, customers, and other stakeholders. It should be feasible, that is, it should be realistic and it should be attainable. It should be focused, it should be clear enough to provide guidance in decision making. It should be flexible in the light of the changing conditions, and it should be communicable, that is, it can be explained in 5 minutes to any of the stakeholders. Next, we need to communicate the change. So again, the change has to be simple, so all jargon must be eliminated from this communication. We can use metaphor or analogy and example because a verbal picture is worth 1,000 words. We need to communicate in different multiple forums such as big meetings, small meetings, on memos, in the newspapers, etc. We need to repeat the message over and over because ideas sink in only after they've been heard many times. The leadership of the organisation should provide example, the leadership behaviour by important people that is consistent with the vision. And there needs to be give and take. There needs to be two-way communication, which is more powerful than one-way communication. Next, we need to empower broad-based action. So we need to communicate a sensible vision to the employees and staff and make sure that structures are compatible with the vision. We need to provide the training that employees need, and we need to align information and personnel systems to support the vision. Next, we need to generate some short-term wins to maintain momentum on our change journey. These short-term wins will provide evidence that the sacrifices that are being made by individuals are worth it. We also need to reward change agents with recognition or other methods of reward, and this helps to fine-tune the vision and the strategies of change. This also helps to undermine the cynics and the self-serving registers who feel that the change isn't going to work, because of course if we've got some short-term wins, that will build confidence in the change. It also helps to keep the bosses on board and maybe prevent them from becoming negative or cynical on the change. It also builds momentum, so if we feel we're achieving something and we're doing it very, very early on in the change project, then that'll build enthusiasm and momentum for the change. Next, we need to consolidate the gains that are being made within the organization. So we need to consolidate the idea of continuing to change and not to reduce the level of change. The guiding coalition uses the credibility afforded by the short-term wins to tackle additional and bigger change projects. Additional people are brought in, promoted and developed to help with all of the changes. And senior people focus on maintaining clarity of shared purpose and keeping the urgency levels up. People management and leadership from below, so lower ranks in the hierarchy, provide both leadership and management for some specific projects. Next, we need to anchor the new approaches in the culture so that these new approaches, these changed approaches, become normal for the organization. So culture change comes last, not first. So most alterations in norms and shared values come at the end of the transformation process. New approaches usually sink into a culture only after it is very clear that they work and that they're superior to the old methods. This requires a lot of talk because without verbal instruction and support, people are reluctant to admit the validity of the new practices. And it also may involve staff turnover because sometimes the only way to change a culture is to change the key people who are resisting the change in that culture. Now, this makes decisions on succession crucial. If promotion processes are not changed to be compatible with the new practices, the old culture will begin to reintroduce itself and reassert itself. We can now look at the theories of Lewin, where he spoke about unfreezing the organization, moving to a new position, and refreezing the organization. And we can compare now these with Kotter, and we can see that the first 4 steps of Kotter, establishing a sense of urgency, forming a coalition, creating a vision, and communicating a vision, these are consistent with Lewin's thoughts on unfreezing. The next 3 steps that Kotter introduced to us of empowering people, creating wins and consolidating improvements, that has to do with Lewin's language of movement to the new position. And the last step of Kotter's process, where we institutionalize the new approaches, that's pretty consistent with Lewin's refreezing concept from Lewin's model. Thank you very much for watching this short tutorial on leading change and the theories of Kotter from the Microlearning Institute.